o'clock, we will call the meeting to order. Please rise and turn to the flag in that corner. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The school board. The school board will convene to executive session tonight to consider the employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility under Wisconsin statutes 19.85, paren 1, paren C, the solo ensemble lessons, piano accompanist, superintendent self-evaluation, and student discipline. We'll begin with the audit presentation by the Clifton Larson Allen group.
Leah is here to present it. And you should have the booklet on here.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'm Leah, I'm the second with CLA. I'm the audit principal on your engagement. In addition to myself, there's also 3 other people that can join me as well. We have an in-charge, we also have a staff person, and then also a second technical reviewer that basically makes sure that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, okay? So I just want to kind of start off. Everybody has their books in front of them, so there's 2 deliverables. I'll dive into those in a second. Just kind of wanted to start off just by a general overview of the audit. So we do come on site the end of August. I do come on site for at least a day or 2. This year it was a little toasty coming in because your air conditioning wasn't quite working yet as Carl starts
This
laughing.
is the new district office. We all suffered lots over it.
Yeah. It was the interesting one of the summer, we'll just put it that way. But Carl and his staff were absolutely fantastic. So we want to give huge kudos to Carl and to Jean, as well as to Kyle for their preparation of the audit. It is no small feat getting ready for us for the audit. So thank you, Carl. It's really, really very much appreciated. So, okay. So before I start, does anybody have any questions at all about the audit overall or anything before I start diving in? Okay. So I want this to be super informal. So if you have a question, please just shout it out right away. Okay. So I'm going to start with the executive summary. There's 2 in the back of each of your books is the executive summary. Okay. And this is really where I'm going to focus my time. It's in kind of a nice, condensed, easy to digest format rather than in the big audit book, okay? But I have a few pages that I'd like you to dog ear to in the audit book, okay? All right, so starting real quick with the executive audit summary on page, sorry, I've got, these for me are going front to back, so I'm going to kind of be juggling this a little bit the whole time. Okay, page 1. This is just kind of a high overview, so this would be kind of your elevator speech as to how did the audit go, okay? So first off, on your audit opinion, we gave you a clean audit opinion, okay? So this is the financial audit, okay? That is the best opinion that you can get from an auditor, okay? It means that we have not identified any material misstatements in your financial statements, which is super important because obviously materiality comes into play there. We can't look at every dollar, we can't look at every dime, but based on all the procedures that we did, we feel that the financial statements do not contain a material misstatement, okay? So that's your first, I'm gonna say that's gonna be your key takeaway, number 1, is the fact that you have a clean audit opinion, okay? So the next section goes into internal controls, and a lot of you probably don't realize that in addition to the financial audit that we do for the district, we also do what's called a compliance audit, okay? So the state requires that every year you go through an audit and you have state compliance requirements. On top of it this year, Sevastopol got the added bonus of having a federal single audit because you exceeded $750,000 in federal monies, okay? So it's a whole other layer of an audit. It's extensive, and I'm going to tell you that it takes almost as much time for us to do that part of it as it does to tick and tie all the rest of the numbers, okay? So as part of that, once we go through all of our procedures, we might come back with some findings, some things that aren't quite right that need to be fixed going forward, okay? So that's what's listed here, is that there's some significant deficiencies and some material weaknesses that are listed, okay? So starting under the internal control significant deficiencies, number 2021-01 and 2021-002, Both of those are recurring from last year, okay? We prepare your financial statements as part of the audit, okay? That's completely, I'll tell you, I work with a ton of districts in the state. Probably 95% of the ones that I work with have their auditors prepare their financial statements. It's just far easier for us to do it than it is for you guys to do it, okay? So the second finding that we identify is segregation of duties. You guys have done everything that you can to try to segregate duties as much as you can. But the facts are, you're still a smaller district. It's Carl, Jean, and Kyle that are doing the majority of the work within the office, right? So you can only segregate duties so much. I see this on the majority of smaller districts that I work with, okay? That's not downplaying it. Keep it in the back of your mind. Know that controls aren't perfect, okay? Okay. So then the next section that I want to get into real quick, talking about material weaknesses and significant deficiencies. This directly relates to the programs that we audit, okay? So when we do a state compliance audit or a federal compliance audit, there's very specific programs that we look at, okay? It's a risk-based approach in how we determine what we're looking at. This year we audited 2 federal programs, ESSER, just your COVID allocation, and then the second one was child nutrition. We had no problems with ESSER. Unfortunately, we had quite a few problems with child nutrition, okay? So that's those that are going to be listed under material weaknesses, okay? These have already been discussed 100% with the district, okay? Carl's aware of them, so is Kyle, okay? And unfortunately, because you didn't have a federal single audit for quite a few years, these things might have just kind of slipped by the sidelines, okay? So the biggest one of all is that there's really no oversight of the claims. Nobody's reviewing and approving those claims when you send them into the state to get reimbursed for meals, okay? That's the number one. The second one, and I'm going to try to explain this as quickly as I can, because if you read the finding, you're going to go, what does that even mean? Verification of free and reduced price applications. Every year, when you turn in an application for food service, it's basically on the honor system, right? You fill out your own income, okay? Well, every year the school district actually has to verify that. You have to sample a number of those applications, and you have to go back to the family, get the support for the income, and verify that what they told you on the application is correct. Unfortunately, there was no support for that, okay? So that's part of that, okay? So that's easy to fix for next year. It's just something that got missed, okay? And the last one that we identified as part of child nutrition is in regards to eligibility, and that there was one student that wasn't entered correctly in the system. However, unfortunately, it doesn't really matter this year anyways, because everybody gets free lunch anyways, right? It's just being more diligent to make sure that when you're entering it into the system that it's accurate, okay? So does anybody have any questions on any of that as to those findings or anything?
Do you feel confident that these are being addressed?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep. So, and I'm happy you brought that up. So as a result of these findings, Carl had to go through and complete a corrective action plan. Okay. And really the corrective action for them is easy. It's getting a signature on the claim. It's making sure that you're doing the verification procedures annually, and that you're going through and making sure that you're updating eligibility in the system. So they're easy corrections to make.
How do we verify the parents' eligibility for free lunches?
So you send a form letter that's asking them to actually submit their income information. So like if they've used their 1040 to show their income, they actually have to submit their 1040 back to the school district to verify.
They have to submit their income back.
Mm-hmm. And if they don't do it, then they get switched to paid. So they have to start paying for the lunches.
When you say a sampling, how many is that?
It's actually rather generous. For you guys, it only would have been 2 or 3 out of all families. Yeah. Okay. So any questions on that at all? Otherwise, remember the fact that you don't have a federal single audit very often. So maybe once every 10 years, maybe. So to have just these issues pop up just in this one major program are really not that big of a deal. Okay, and like I said, corrective action will be taken. Okay, so we will have to audit again, another federal single audit this next year, just because we're expecting that you'll have all those ESSER monies from ESSER 2, and as well as you're going to have the increased child nutrition for the free meals for next year too. So we'll look at it again next year. Okay? All right, so that was my worst news. Everything else I promise is going to be really good. Okay, so under the general fund balance, that's just a quick paragraph that's talking about that in your general fund, you did have a very nice increase of $273,000 in fund balance, okay? So this does represent about 61% of your general fund expenditures, okay? And there's another paragraph later on, but I'll talk about it right now too. We recommend as auditors, and most other companies are going to recommend the same thing, not just auditors, your financial advisors are going to recommend the same thing, that you're about 20 to 25% and you're sitting at 61%, which is actually, you could say, it could perhaps be a little too high, right? Because right now you have all this unassigned monies that's just sitting there and it's not being utilized in other areas, okay? But that is very healthy. I don't see that in a lot of districts, okay? Sitting at 61% is very healthy. Any questions on that at all? Okay. All right, so very good. So I'm going to move on real quick to page 2. So page 2 is your formal required communication, so that's with all of you. Obviously, as auditors, we have a lot of stuff that we have to communicate with all of you. I'm not going to go into any of this too much in depth. The only thing I want to point out real quick is under the accounting policy, so it's going to be that middle section, there's that one paragraph that starts as described in note 3E. Okay? If you're looking at last year's financial statements, you're going to see a difference to this year's financial statements in regards to pupil activity accounts. You had to implement GASB 84 this last year, which said, you know what, you have fiduciary control over those monies. They can't just be sitting as assets and liabilities on your books. They're your monies. You still have control over them, even though they're restricted for a specific club, okay? So rather than them sitting in an agency fund, they now got pulled in as a special revenue fund. So if you're looking at your financial statements and going, what happened to that? That's where it is, and you actually recognize it now in revenue and expense. Okay, it's a substantial amount. You have about $154,000 in pupil activity, okay? And that was a global change that's across all governmental entities that got added, okay? All right, so the next thing I'm going to comment on real quick is at the bottom of page 3. Uncorrected and corrected misstatements. The reason I bring this up is because if you're involved in any other organization and you look at audit reports, go to these paragraphs. These are important. This tells you what do the auditors adjust to your financial statements, right? Because if we're adjusting a lot in their material, that's not a good thing. Because what does that mean you're looking at during the year, right? So these 2 paragraphs are so important. And for you guys, these paragraphs are great. Because for uncorrected misstatements, there were none that we identified that were uncorrected. And that means for us, it's called clearly trivial. It would have to be a pretty small dollar amount for us to still say it's uncorrected. And I'm talking like $5,000. And we didn't identify any of that whatsoever, okay? In the corrected misstatements section, you'll see that we made 2 material adjustments to your financial statements, and that was it. One was to implement GASB 84. Big deal, right? It's next year, you're not going to see that. And the next one is to adjust retainages from your construction project. You're not going to see that again next year either. Okay? We do very few journal entries for you. I feel like, I don't remember the exact number, Carl, but I want to say it was like 4 or 5 total. And the other 2 or 3 that we do in addition to these 2 are very minor, okay? So huge kudos to Carl and to Jean for keeping up the financial records during the year so that we don't have to make all these adjustments at the end, okay? All right, good. Okay, so I'm going to move on. I'm not skipping over important stuff here, really, truly, but if you have any questions on any of these next few pages, I can certainly talk on any of them, but I'm going to switch over to page 6. Okay, so this is again just going to go through quick your governmental fund balances. We talked already on the general fund. You're sitting at about $6.4 million as of June 30th. An unassigned general fund balance, again, that's a $273,000 increase from last year. Reminder, you budgeted a deficit of I believe it was $640,000 or $650,000. So you did significantly better than what you expected to your budget, okay? The rest of the fund balances that you'll note here, debt service fund is $612,000. That ebbs and flows depending on what you're levying for your debt service payments, as well as what you've got going on with debt closings, okay? Your special revenue funds, you'll see community service and student activities, 148,000 and 152,000. You'll see that that didn't change a whole lot from the previous year. Capital projects funds, your long-term capital improvement fund is sitting at $930,000. In addition to the $273,000 that you guys were able to put away in your general fund, you also put $400,000 away in the long-term capital improvement fund as well. Okay. You spent about $91,000 out of that fund this year, but you're still sitting with $930,000 as of June 30th in that fund. Okay, that's a huge win. That's going to be another takeaway for you guys, definitely, for my presentation. Capital projects, you see that that's sitting at about $5.9 million. Again, that's going to ebb and flow as the rest of the capital projects are completed. Okay. Any questions on that at all with fund balance? No? Okay. All right. Very good. Then I'm going to switch over real quick to the big book. And then I'm almost out of your hair, I promise. Just a few things that I want to comment on real quick. That, like I said, if you can dog ear these pages and come back to them, I would highly recommend that. Looking real quick at pages 4 and 5. The reason I'm going to make a comment on this real quick is because I can't tell you the number of times I've gone back to my office and I've gotten a call after one of these meetings and people are saying, how come we can't tie out pages 4 and 5 to our GL? How come we can't tie it out to our financial statements that the business manager gives us? These are full accrual financial statements. Okay, they're required. They do not equal your general ledger. They include all of your assets and they include all of your long-term debt. So these have an outward look to them, right? Okay, so that's what these are. So again, we prepare these for you. We do all your GASB, we call them GASB entries, when we're converting all this to full accrual. Okay, so if you're looking at those and you're still not sure what I mean, just bypass them and go to page 6. So page 6 starts with your actual fund statements, and this is what's going to agree to what you typically see with your budget. Okay, and that's going to be the remainder of these statements and schedules. I'm just going to point out real quick. Actually, I'm going to skip all the way ahead. Sorry, guys. I'm going to skip all the way to page 22 into your footnotes. If I can pick one footnote out, that's the most important for all of you sitting around the table. This is going to be this is going to be page number 22, footnote 2B, long-term debt obligations. Okay. So on page 22, I want you to take a look real quick at the last 2 charts. The middle chart talks about and discloses the debt that you have outstanding as of June 30th. You'll see that there's those 3 issuances. Okay. You'll pay off those debts through 2039. Okay. See the interest rate disclosed between 3.25% and 5%. Okay. The last chart there is great. This is a maturity schedule. It shows you exactly what the anticipated payments are through the maturity date of 2039. Okay, so it looks like if you take a quick look, it's about $1 million a year is what you're going to be spending through 2039 for those debt service payments. Okay.
On those, if you look at 2022, that payment was made in September. 2023 payments, there's 2 payments. One will be made in March and one will be made in September. So we make our debt payments in March and September. In March, we make principal and interest. March we make interest only. September we make principal and interest.
All right, and on the next page, on the top of page 23, we disclose your legal margin for new debt. I really hope that you guys aren't considering taking out any more debt quite yet, but if you did, you still have debt margin of about $130 million. So spend away, right? And that's in accordance with state statute. Okay, that's what's telling you that you have that limited debt margin. Okay. The next paragraph there talks about capital leases. You do have a capital lease that is on the books. It's a debt just like what you would with anything else. It's sitting as an asset as well in those government-wide financial statements. Okay. It's just like any other kind of debt.
And the lease that we have is our copiers.
Okay. Any questions on that at all? Okay. My last page that I'm going to show you real quick is page 36. Again, this is one to dog ear. This is a great one. Budget versus actual. This is just for your general fund. We also do show the special education fund on the next page, but I'm only going to talk about the general fund. Okay. So as I mentioned before, you had budgeted for a $646,000 deficit, and you ended the year with a $273,000 surplus. Okay. To kind of give you an idea of where you did so well, if you look at the far right column that shows the positive and negative variances to budget, your total revenues were $457,000 more than you expected, largely in open enrollment as well as in federal sources. Federal sources are going to be your ESSER monies. It's going to be your child nutrition that you received. Okay. Down in the expenditure section, some real positive variances to budget. You spent $111,000 less than you budgeted for in instructional services. And in support services, you spent almost $630,000 less than what you budgeted. The biggest one being operations and maintenance of plant, which I'm seeing at almost every single school district, that had a big decrease from the previous year, based on, obviously, you weren't open as much. So overall, your positive variance to budget, if you'd like to call that, is almost $1 million, $919,000 from expectation. Okay. So very, very good results. If I could do kind of the takeaways real quick again, it's going to be the fact that you banked $276,000 in your general fund. You were able to put $400,000 away in your capital improvement trust, okay? And you're sitting with 61% of next year's general fund expenditures and unassigned fund balance in your general fund, okay? You're in a good position. All right.
Is there a short comment on, talk to me about why the fund balance being high is the financial advisor's perspective of why that's bad for a public school?
You want to be careful, there's taxpayers. If you have some real savvy taxpayers that are going to start looking at your financial statement saying, why aren't you reducing your levy then? So that's where you want to be careful. And it's not necessarily that, it's not a bad thing to have a good sized fund balance if you have a plan for it. So right now it's all sitting in unassigned. I could recommend one of the things that I would do, especially if you're looking out a few years to spend this down, you can commit it or you can assign it by the board. And then that way it puts it into another bucket. So instead of it sitting in unassigned, it would take it out of that 61% calculation. And it shows that you have a purpose for that fund balance.
Can you walk them through the fact that that's what we have on June 30th, hypothetically, it's not all there because some of our income comes in July and August when our books close on June 30th.
Right.
And then our low point, like 3 months were positive on revenue over expenditures. The other 9 months were the opposite, where our expenditures are larger than our revenue. So like December is our low point to like the January 15th payroll probably is our lowest point, wouldn't you say?
So isn't there's a dollar amount we have to carry to avoid short-term borrowing, isn't there?
That's what I'm talking about, exactly, because you got to get through the December, January, but she's saying if we're at 25, we're okay, so.
I just wanted to ask, because for everyone to hear, I think most public organizations are going broke,
Right.
and this one is not.
Right.
That's a great thing, and you said it, we're in very good shape. And short-term borrowing that lots of schools do.
Right.
We don't have to because of many long decisions for many years by the school. So I think that needs to be echoed, and I understand what you're saying, and it's important, and we roll that into financial planning and stuff. But I just wanted to hear it from you.
Yeah.
And I think what you're saying too is a few years ago, the legislators were very concerned about the amount of fund balances that the schools were carrying when it came to budget appropriations at the state level.
Exactly.
And there was a lot of concern on the part of taxpayers saying, you've got all this money, why aren't you using it? Why are you asking for more tax dollars?
Right, exactly. Which is why it's so important that when you are seeing this kind of a number, start committing the fund balance, start assigning the fund balance. I don't remember your policy, if it would fall under commitment or assigned, it doesn't matter. But it does need to happen by board, either a resolution or an approval, to have those monies essentially set aside. And it doesn't mean you can't undo it, because a plan can always change, right? It's just important to do that, so that's shown in that second bucket.
Except if you put it in 46, you can't.
Right,
Right.
right, right. You have the advantage of it obviously being able, right? When you put it
Correct.
into 46, but then you're stuck with it being in 46.
Right, once you put it in 46,
And one thing that, and if you have people ask,
it's going to ADM already, yeah,
if you have people asking about that, one thing you can also take them back to is there was a number of years where things were budgeted to be put into the old school. But nothing was done because we weren't sure where we were headed. And now we're in that direction. We know where we're going, we know what we're doing, we know what buildings we have. We're gonna have these buildings for the next 20 years minimum. So now we know what we need to fix, what we need to, where we need to go. I anticipate our fund balance decreasing. I wouldn't say majorly, but I would say probably closer to the 40% range, 45%.
I just wanted the auditor's perspective, because I know you
Right.
went to the CFAC and through all that, for 10 years we've been waiting on the darn building.
Right.
We finally got that, and we are moving forward with improvements in other areas that have needed it, and so that,
Right.
I think we're on the right track, but I just wanted to hear, because I want to learn sometimes, because I think
We always keep saying the same thing and then get a different perspective.
well, and what you just kind of said, and this is,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna change it. If it's government money, you better spend it. I hate that. I'm sorry. That's what it is. It's government money, you better spend it.
Right.
They'll take it from you. Well, maybe we're making sure that when the tree blows over and wipes out our air conditioning unit at a windstorm last night, we are able to fix that.
Right.
And I know the number's high, I get it. So thank you very much, it's awesome.
Did that really happen?
No,
No.
he made that up, yeah, no, he made that up. The dugout on the baseball diamond got blown away last
Oh,
night,
no.
but, you know, that's,
No,
It's the
that's
town.
just the difference in this community, and
Yeah.
and we just went through the new building referendum, and
Yeah.
so there's, our community pays attention.
We-
so-
We have an old building left that is, for sure, things are gonna go wrong down there that we need to plan to pay for.
But there's room for improvement in that area, and thank you for saying that.
Yeah, yeah.
Any
Can you
other
ever use your,
questions?
can you ever use your parts of your fund balance to prepay some of your debt?
You could.
Does that make economic sense or not?
I think you would have to do an analysis of that, because honestly, right now, I mean, with having bonded debt, your interest rates are pretty low.
yeah.
So,
We got a
and,
pretty good deal.
yes, and in a lot of those bonds, you can't prepay them. You could do like a defeasance, where you would put money aside into an escrow account that would pay those off. That is an option. I don't remember who you work, do you work with Bear?
Fair deal.
It may not be a bad thing to just inquire with them for this next year and just make sure that you're being as smart as you can with your debt, because there might be some strategies around that that could help.
Mike Clark's come there 4 weeks before, and Carl just went to a meeting for a day in December. Are you going January 20th as well?
Yeah, I might, yeah.
Well, let's
Yeah.
dig deeper on other options other than Fund 46, we're familiar with that, and we can do some
Right.
there, but let's look at what other options are.
But if you put it in an escrow account, which is making money to pay off your debt earlier,
That's it.
it's always there in case you have a rainy day and you can pull it out of that escrow account and do whatever you want.
In this, it ends up in an irrevocable trust. But Barry can help you out with that. Yeah, it's set aside, it's gone.
You just can't put it in a Bitcoin.
Yeah. Exactly.
Thank you, I didn't mean to go that long.
No, that's okay, no, but, yeah.
Any other questions for the auditor? Otherwise, thank you very much for taking the trip. Very much appreciate it. Appreciate the good report.
Yep.
The second item on the agenda, the court procedures by the law firm, they could not work with us tonight, so we're going to move that forward to January. Were there any guests that signed up that wish to speak? Okay. Does anyone wish anything removed from the consent agenda? If not, then the consent agenda is approved by consent with these donations. The Rayburn donation for reframing of the Sevastopol artwork by alumni. I guess, is that all that artwork that was hanging in the former
Multi-purpose room?
multi-purpose
Yes.
room?
A lot of them are the senior awards, you know, when you're a senior, now they're alumni, they were students at the time.
Justice and Catherine Nadine donation of $250 for Destination Imagination, and the Zeit Family Trust donation of $5,000 for Destination Imagination. So thank you very much for those. And then we'll move to administrators' reports. Mr. Baer.
Thank you, Mrs. Berry, I appreciate it. Now we really have to focus. There's about, let's see, after today, there's 14 days left of first semester. So our teachers are working really hard because of Thanksgiving break and then also winter break in there. We really want to make sure that our students are in good positions to succeed. So we're having many conversations working with our students to make sure that they leave for the holidays on a good foot. Holidays are definitely here. Holidays are a time to celebrate, but it can also be a stressful time. And we're noticing that with some of our students. Working really hard to keep students on track, maintaining routines, procedures, being in the hallways, being present has been really important. But I think we see the light at the end of the tunnel. This week has ended really well, so we're going in a good direction. We kicked it off in a great way with our band and choir concert on Monday. We had probably, 350 people there. It was outstanding just to see everybody come together and celebrate our kids. Kids sounded wonderful. It was great to see it perform.
It was nice it was online.
Yeah, and it was nice to bring everybody together. I think all the guests.
I mean, it was nice that people could go, but it was nice to have it online.
Absolutely. Thank you,
others.
Stephen, for doing that. We really appreciated
I
that.
had a good online turnout.
Yeah, so. Also, a big thing for us this time of year is our food drive. We've had a wonderful turnout again. We started off really slow. When I wrote this report, I probably had about 600-700 items. We've now doubled that. We're around 1,500 items that we'll be able to distribute right back to our community. So that's always a really wonderful initiative, and I thank all of our families and students who help provide that. That stays right here in Sevastopol, goes to our local families. I also wanted to mention that Melissa Margraf and I are working on a work group with Human Services to look at alternative school options. We recognize that there are some opportunities that may be missed, and this is a conversation amongst all 4 county school districts, as well as Human Services, and I think United Way joined us at our last work team meeting. And really what we're looking at is if there are student populations that are underserved here in Door County. We look at day treatment programs. There's none of those available here. Other programs, and so we're really talking as schools as to what can we do a better job of and looking at those options. I also wanted to mention that, go ahead.
I was very intrigued by that. Just my only 2 follow-ups is, you just started, is that right? You just
started, we have 2 meetings.
I'm curious, it's too early then to talk about like schedule when we'll actually do something. Are they kind of crafting out by this school year, blah, blah, blah? Or
not at this point.
Have you talked budget, like where the funding is coming from?
Those are the questions that we really have to answer, is how we're going to fund that.
And sooner than later would be awesome, right? Because that's a great program, and I don't even know what it means, but it sounds like there's that.
Yeah, we used to have a challenge program here in Door County that really served our students for many years, and some of you are shaking your heads and remember how impactful that was for a certain population of students, and we lost that, I would say it's almost 20 years ago already. And so we really have never filled that void. Whenever we have a student that has that type of need, we have to send them out of county. It's really expensive for the county and or the school district to provide those types of services. So if we're able to take the dollars that are going outside of Door County and keep them here locally, we can serve a wide population of students. So it actually is something that Melissa and I are very passionate about and have been meeting and discussing. But like I said, we've had 2 meetings and we will continue to meet and work together.
Can I add something to that?
Yes, please, absolutely.
I think too, the schools are coming together really defining what that is, because an alternative program for kids, I mean, it's very broad. So really the discussion is narrowing down what is it and what is it not.
Right.
So we can be specific and very transparent and clear when we take it to the next level. So.
Because I just assume, there are some resources the schools just can't get done, and if we work together, that would be good. And that's, I'm kind of curious about statutes and reading them and stuff down the road. So
Yeah.
thanks.
So how many students would you suppose would be in a program? How many students could you foresee?
In the whole county?
Oh, here.
Well, again, it depends on what type of program we're
We
creating.
defined it yet. I mean, you just said.
We have to define the services that will be provided. So for example, if we're looking at credit deficiency and just a GED type program, that's much different than like a day treatment type program. We're working emotional health type needs. So it really depends on what type of program we're going to build. And the next thing that our team is looking at doing is touring facilities in the state of Wisconsin, so we can really define what we're looking for. But as I stated in my report, the first thing that we did is we did a survey to survey the needs of our school districts so that we had some initial numbers of the type of at-risk students that we could best serve. So we could tell if we have a big enough population to create a program for those students' needs. So it's really an initial conversation, but I appreciate your enthusiasm. It's something that Mrs. Margraf and I will continue to update you on, because it really is a missing piece here in Door County. It really is. And since that void was...
And I would think with all this ESSER money now, and this additional money that the governor has just released,
Yeah.
There would be some opportunity, particularly for credit efficient and mental health, because those can be tied to the ESSER funds.
Right.
Right. Now, the program they want to set up, though, is going to be long-term. The ESSER
Right.
funds will run out in 2 or 3 years. So
Right, exactly.
whatever you set up, you can't have the bucket of money disappear in 2 years, though, then.
Exactly.
But you
have it
could
going.
use the money to get a
Upstart.
a kickstart.
Right,
Upstart,
exactly.
And
absolutely.
then have everyone realize they're gonna roll money to continue it.
Right.
What I like about the model so far is Human Services and United Way have stepped in from a behavioral health standpoint, and the schools have said, our job is still the educational component, because we can't do both. We can't be fiscally responsible for both, nor can they. So now, of
It's a
course,
partnership.
I say that partnership is important. We've seen it work with Stride and other programs that we've had develop, and so I think we have a pathway. We just got to determine where our needs are, what our program might look like. And like I said, this is really early in the discussion, but we're excited to be part of it and wanted to update the board. The last thing that I wanted to mention is Lauren Bauman is our new youth apprenticeship coordinator for Door County. CISA has taken Jen Johnson from us, and it's extended to Brown County, but Door County is really a highlight. It started, of course, in Kewaunee County with LC, but we have some growing numbers and trends as far as our youth apprenticeship opportunities for students. And she just said Sevastopol is doing a great job, has a lot of students involved. Really excited about the trends in all Door County schools, but she said, you know, us in Southern Door are doing a great job. So, thank you. Any questions?
Not a question, but a comment, just a congratulations on the U.S. News and World Report. I didn't mention it in my report, but I wanted to mention it publicly, being listed as the best middle school in Wisconsin.
Thank you.
My email was blowing up with school board members across the state noticing that, so it has not gone unnoticed. Congratulations to you and your staff.
I'm going to throw a little wet blanket on that,
Okay.
because it is the first year that they've done elementary schools and middle schools. And Jerry's asked me about this before, because we always get these solicitations in our email about ordering a plaque because you're the best high school, you're this, you're that. But if anybody's looking online now and saying, well, how is our high school doing, or how is our elementary school doing, you'll find other schools rated above us that don't rate above us on our state report cards. So where U.S. News and World Report is pulling their data from, I don't know. And I'm not disputing Sevastopol's middle school. I'm saying if you're looking at U.S. News and World Report now and want to compare Sevastopol Elementary or high school to other schools, you'll find us rated below the other schools, and you'll wonder why is that. So, but for the moment, Sevastopol is in the news.
Yeah, that's a great thing. I appreciate it. I tend to look at the state report cards and look at that ranking as well. And I looked at Sevastopol Middle School as number 2 this year. So, in the state out of all the middle schools, which previously we were 1 and 1. So, but that's good. That's a great approach.
In my previous life, I would grab whoever would say one. Anybody said we were number 1 or the top 10, that's good enough for me.
U.S. News and World Report is a bit like Janice Dean doing the weather in the morning on the news. She's doing the national weather, and where are they getting their data from? For our middle school, though, they got the right data. This is Mark Robb.
Just want to make sure it's not a plaque company, to give that message to everybody.
Yeah.
Plaques.
Yeah.
But anyway, congratulations.
I have some good news to report for the STRIDE program. We have been authorized to add another half day of counseling services, so which is really great. We have about 16 youth who take a part of the STRIDE program, that extra time allows all of the kids in the program to be seen weekly. So we're really proud about that. And in addition to that, working with the new mental health navigator, one of the initiatives we're working on is what do the supports look like for the kids who are no longer in the program? Where are the check-ins with those kids, making sure that everything is okay, and really working on a system of how long a student is in, because the STRIDE programming is, tier 3. As far as an intervention and a help for students. And once how long does a student stay in it? Of course, it's based on their needs, but when they don't need that level of support anymore, what's the step-down services for them look like? So we've never really had the opportunity to flush that out or develop it, but now, starting January, we're going to have those good conversations to make sure kids who are not in the program, they still get those check-ins to make sure that everything is okay, and they know where to go if they do need support too. So,
maybe just, what's the avenue if they're in the STRIDE program and that program is exhausted and they're not making progress? Is there a next step for an individual in that situation? If there's no progress being made?
The best answer I can have right now is they stay in the services longer, right? But I would think at that point there's more outreach with family. What can we do, because that's more.
I assume family would be involved in
They are,
STRIDE all along.
but more conversations with the counselor, because the Bellin counselor is the one that's doing all that work with the student and the family. So I would say if it's a student who is not making the progress, that our Bellin counselor is really working with that family.
And I know progress is measured differently with each individual and each challenge, right? I know that's not a simple thing, but, I just think okay, thank you.
Melissa, can you just comment on how much provider service, we're not at a threshold, are we, in terms of what our provider can provide?
We were until we got more,
Are we at a point where we're going to need an additional provider?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I'd like to see what it looks like with the another half day. And then once that rolls out a little bit, I think I'll have a better idea to be able to answer that.
Okay.
Any other questions for Ms. Margaret? Now we'll move to Mr. Hills.
Thank you. Just getting a few highlights that were in the document that was sent to you. The Penny War fundraiser, just to let you know, the money was given to the local VFW post. Bill Graff, who came to pick that up, was very surprised, was very pleased, and we talked briefly, and he said that there's a number of programs that they, as an organization, donate to provide services to veterans. So they really appreciated having that money to be able to do that. So huge kudos to our students for coming in, making sure that that money was raised. We thought it would be significant to provide $1,111.11 in honor of November 11th. There was a little bit beyond that was raised, and we're going to use that fund and any other and some additional funds to, in January, provide some letters to active service members. Ms. Bowers, a daughter, is on a ship, and she gave us a list of all the crew members. So we're going to divide that out, send personal cards to those crew members, as well as putting together a care package. And we'll send that off sometime in late January. That's a part of our overall community caring program, that each of the different grade levels has something, and this is something that we have decided to do as a school, is to take on the military and veterans. So that, and then a couple things coming up in January, just to highlight. One is the reading program, Tundra Tales, kicks off toward the end of January, the 24th. And we have our annual spelling bee and geography week coming up.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Hills?
Yeah, just for the three of you, just to throw this out, and we can't talk about it tonight, but I really would like to talk about it sometime in the future. When I go on vacation, I was great on books off of bookshelves. I never read other than on vacation. So I grabbed a book off grab like Killing Japan, those great movie, great books. But I grabbed one, it's called The Boy Crisis, and I started reading it, and it just really blew my mind. So much that I started highlighting stuff. I never highlight in books because I ruin books. But really, it, to me, tells me that potentially the biggest problem we have in education right now is the education of our boys. In the book it says that 70% of the valedictorians across the United States are girls, while 70% of the D's and F's in school are headed by boys. It just blew my mind. It says, my friend grew up in an era in which girls were doing badly in math and science. They recalled how we concluded the trouble was with the schools. They also saw now that boys are doing badly in almost every subject, and we say the trouble is with the boys.
What's the copyright date on that one?
2018. Yeah.
Jerry, attend our academic banquet this spring. You'll see there's more girls there than boys.
Right, it's a worldwide problem.
Yeah.
I mean, we're seeing it at TC. It goes into the majority of students in higher education now are girls, not boys. And even at TC, in a tech school, which you're learning how to do tech stuff, the majority of students at TC now are girls, not boys. Boys are, it goes into, I haven't got into all the psychological, there's a lot of interesting psychological stuff in there, but there is, it just hit me in the head, like, there's a definite problem hitting right in our face, which to me transcends almost any of the other problems we talk about, since boys are approximately 50% of our student makeup. I don't know if the problems are here, but I presume there are some issues like that. One of the takeaways so far is that what boys need, what we don't do in schools, in K through 12, is we don't teach them to do interpersonal relations, which then spins on everything else, things out of control. I just throw it out here as something I'm finding fascinating, and you may want to spend a Saturday evening reading this. It's really, but it's just believing it over. And I've heard about it at other times, so.
Thank you. Any questions on the athletic director's report or the G&T report you want to direct? If there aren't any, we'll move on to Mr. Lipke.
You have a list of policies that had grammatical or minor changes that didn't change the language at all. So those are my report. There's other policies coming up later, but those are the ones that by our policy can just be corrected without you having to dig into them. And then you have a packet on your table in front of you that says Sevastopol School District Baseline Cleaning Program. Pretty exciting. I had Mark Baker from Hilliard come here and he's analyzed our building. And you can see the first 10 pages, or the first 9 pages really, are different tasks, what we have, how often it should be done, what the factor is for how much work that it takes to accomplish the task, and not only the labor, the minutes per task and whatnot. He's also now analyzing our equipment for cleaning the building because our system has changed, our flooring has changed and whatnot. I'm sure he's going to be selling us some product for cleaning, and that's okay. We have some areas where we're kind of deficient in, but it's a start. And then the 11th page, which is page 1 of 1, this is the gross square foot. It's the very last page. Gross square feet, cleanable square footage is about 163,614 square feet. Recommended labor is 13,348 man hours. Total available.
Woman hours.
What?
Or woman hours.
Or what labor hours? I'm gonna call them labor hours. That's what he calls them. Yeah, half our crew is the female, but they're recommending 6.42 custodians for cleaning tasks only, not maintenance. And so we're short. So but this is just his initial first time out. So when I come to you next month and say, hey, we should hire another custodian because we've got a little different building makeup, and when you find out that we have a scrubber that they're riding down the hallways and stuff, and I shouldn't even say this, but by first grade, you know that hallway that has 8 square feet of carpeting in the middle, we should have made that all so they could just ride right down and back, because now they got a lift and go over it and whatnot. Architect's vision of his mission was, Myron calls that. So anyways, next month I'll be coming with that recommendation, increase this and go from there to take better care of our building.
So
That
that's
is
in our
exciting.
building 10-year plan, that as soon as that needs to be repaired, it comes out, right? That's what we're putting on the mill. Right? I mean, I'm
First
sorry.
chance I get.
As a recommendation.
Right. Well, everyone says, well, what would you do differently with the building? That'd be the first thing I do. Let's take that off now.
That's a 10-year plan, not this week.
It looked nice when we were drawing it, we were all sitting in those meetings and stuff, and yeah, okay, but it could have been red tile, rubberized floor like the white tile, right? It breaks up the aesthetic, but it's just one of those things, so. Yeah, so anyways, just, in January, come and say, hey,
Good. No.
here's the data.
I'm very excited.
We need a custodian.
So what's your square footage difference now than it was 2 years ago?
What was the difference?
I'm certain
Yeah,
there's more square footage.
it's more,
The
it's
hallways, all
It's the
the
hallway and the
requirements
ADA
are changed,
compliant.
bathrooms are bigger.
Probably about 43,000 square feet more now.
So you're gonna have to
Things.
hire more people to clean it.
Well, it depends on the materials, what you're cleaning.
Yeah, like every room, you can see, he looked at, how many hand soap dispensers do we have in the entire building? We have 62 hand soap dispensers. Well, who would count that up, right? He did. So, and
But it takes
actually,
labor to fill it.
right, so,
Takes somebody to fill it.
and you go around here and take a look, see, yeah.
Labor.
So, and he's gonna work on an efficient pattern for our custodians as well, so there's some efficiencies we can cut back too. But I'm telling you, we're coming forward with, we need more help for the size building, we're having some new equipment for
Nice.
what we have, so.
So I was just looking for it.
So, yeah, I was excited. Well, I've known Mark for a long time. I wanted to get him up here, but I wanted to have his building first. Because I wasn't gonna have him study the old building and then switch, right? It wasn't worth it, so
Anything else?
that's all I got today.
I do not have anything. The athletic committee report.
What, so, I don't know, are we talking, so the park meetings, we had a town park meeting?
Ready to talk about that?
So a lot of continued communication, I think, with the park. My perspective is that our communication is getting far better. We're working with them. They've already been, we have projects we're working on together. And it's unfortunate but their engineer just said the dugout wasn't in good shape.
He said that
He
last
said
night.
last night, the engineer
Yeah.
said that, or we got the report. And then unfortunately, the wind proved him correct. So that was unfortunate. But
The third day's dugout's gone.
yeah, so so the dialogue is good, and we just are coming together, they're going to their board with a recommended agreement on how we're working together. Is that coming up in future? Or do I-
In January, we'll have our park arrangement with them has been for 3 years, each of the last at least 6 years. I don't know, it goes back farther than that. With coming up with a 5-year plan, we'd like to have a 5-year agreement with them since we want to put improvements in down there on a joint basis with them and make that long-term. And using those diamonds for baseball and softball is way cheaper to help them keep them up to the standards of what the WIA requires for our high school baseball and softball than it is to transport to another township or build their own diamonds. So we want to keep that partnership. So they did a nice job at analyzing their costs for upkeep of the diamonds. And they also said, hey, this is how much you're using it compared to other groups. And so it's good, the number's going to bump up, but
Yeah, that's what some of the past discussions, but they brought all their numbers and spreadsheets, they did a lot of research, they broke all the numbers down. It was a very good dialogue, because, we it's just.
and they shared it with us.
Yeah, that's,
That was a huge moment when they shared those numbers with us, because they were talking hypothetical at the time that they shared it, like, hey, there you go, now you can see it, kind of like this thing for the maintenance of the building here, kind of can see it, so.
Great. Anything else for the athletic committee? No?
Did you talk about this?
We'll talk about that in the field
Okay, very
project.
good.
Okay.
Meet and confer was on December 8th.
Dave attended.
I like that, I'm plugging to keep this option. Kyle had added, I may have missed it in the agenda, that there's a school board issues opportunity for a school board member to kind of ask questions of the staff. I think that's good because each of us have a different perspective and you see different things in the community. But we only had one staff member show up currently. And I think I was a little bummed because of all this COVID and all this other stuff going on. I wanted to hear, kind of what's really going on, And so we just talked to Ryan, he's a regular, right, that's good. And then, a good discussion about some random topics.
For the next time we set this up, we'll make sure, I think some staff members think that the union has to come bring it. I think we gotta make sure to say, hey, this is for anybody, like show up. And we did have school calendar in there, we bounced some ideas around. I was hoping to have some more staff participation in that part of it. Some people love spring break, some people want the day before Thanksgiving, some want to get done in May, so they don't want to have days off throughout the year. And we didn't have a lot of that discussion because it was Dave, Ryan, and I.
Well, that's breaking the mold. I think we talked about that. Get the word out that there is an opportunity to come affect the calendar. Now, that final decision still has to be made, but I mean, everyone can provide, because some people have good inputs for educational benefits and stuff. I mean, we don't want to necessarily hear that, hey, me and my buddy are going on a Wyoming trip and I want to be off this time. But if there's educational value in how we break up the year and the kids, I think those are really credible. And a lot of our staff are very experienced with a lot of good ideas. So I thought it was cool, but I think maybe in the future they'll take more advantage of that. I hope.
Good. Budget report?
Well, we had the audit report. Like I said during the audit report, like December is kind of the time of year when we end up at the lower end of the fund balance, cash on hand. We're at 3.4. We'll have the December 30th or the December payrolls and then the January 15th payroll. But we're sitting in pretty good shape. We received a check, was it this week or last week, for Focus on Energy?
This week we did earlier this week.
Yeah, for $21,000, which is related to the solar panels up on the industrial arts wing.
Well, and I went up online and looked and it said part of the new construction. I take it that's what they're talking about? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so that's basically it. And then you got the audit report, so yeah, we're doing all right.
Facilities.
For the addition, right now, they're putting the flooring in the cafeteria. So work on it all day tomorrow. The kids get displaced for lunches tomorrow. Then they should finish up on Saturday if they don't finish up tomorrow. And then they'll start working their way around the 65 hall band first floor. The air handler into the ag room, into the fab lab is noisy, so we're looking at relocating that and enclosing it. It's the handrails for the interior learning stairs. They have to make an adjustment, and they're doing a design on that. Plus, if you're walking around the corner here on the first floor, if you're coming from this way, you walk right into the learning stairs, so they got to put a safety bar in, and that's in design. The exterior learning stairs by the 1965 gym going out to the north parking lot, steps come down, but it's not connected to the sidewalk, so in spring, or probably after school gets out, they'll put 3 more steps in and connect that. There's something else I'm missing.
Is the greenhouse issue?
No, that's not taken care of yet. There's argument about the plastic roof. If there was a fire, it would melt on people, and the exit for the greenhouse goes right into this school, so there's disagreement on whether that's allowable or not, so they're looking at if it can be 60% or 40% of that material. I'm letting them figure out. Glass is very heavy and expensive because it breaks in winters in Wisconsin, so they're working on that. I don't know what the final answer would be. The state reviewer is looking at it. It all started with the shade in there, because the shade, the fire chief said, well, that's flammable, so you gotta get a different material for the shade. The greenhouse supplier says, I've never done a different kind, and so they're out looking for what it is. So that's 2 greenhouse issues. What else is there? I'm trying to get through this building. There's something else. Oh, we got some doors on back order for the 65 section of the building.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be here in January, but we know they won't be because they just won't be, because we're waiting on them.
Are the base appliances installed?
Base appliances were installed yesterday. Yes, that face room is fantastic, yeah. We're looking for a ADA compliant dishwasher for the life skills room that fits underneath a 32-inch countertop. They're just not in stock, you just can't find one. So I think Dan ordered one, but
Yeah.
heaven knows when it'll get here.
They're on a boat at Long Beach.
Someplace, so yeah, so there's little things like that. I guess that's the building, yeah.
Well, that's a lot to keep track of, but it's really not
I
so
probably,
bad.
I
And
probably missed something, but at least we got a short list now. which is
Considering the scope of the project, it's not so bad.
fine. No, it's
Okay,
good.
then we'll move on to the field project.
The field project, there has to be some excavating, they reshot some grades, and by the shot put discus area, that hill coming down behind the bleachers is too steep, so they gotta redo that. They may put in a little retaining wall. They asked if we wanted to do that as soon as they could, or they asked if we wanted to do it now, or as soon as they could in March, April, or wait till June. I said wait till June, because if you do it now or March, April, you won't use the shot put disc area. And the same thing with the football field. On the exterior, they got elevations now, and some has to be raised up a few inches, and some's got to be raised down a few. It's like all within a foot, or 6 inches or 4 inches. I told them not to touch it because I want girls soccer to play out there if the grass looks decent, which I think it does. And then wait till June to get on it. And I think May 31st is the date we have Hutchinson coming back, because everything gets done on May 30th, and so that we should be able to use it in the spring. And then the exciting news is Thermotronics donated $500,000 towards the concession stand, bathroom, trainer's room, referee space out there. So that's very exciting. So
Did they give them naming rights?
what?
Did they deserve naming rights?
Yeah, yep. If you look at your,
It's all in the brochure.
if you look at the brochure. The
So if you
committee-
would like to make a donation, you can have
Yes.
something named after you.
And what the Booster Club and the athletic committee's been working on with this. We have a list of other folks we're gonna ask for donations to go towards this
Jerry,
project.
We'll talk to Mrs. Warwick.
And we're gonna, the Booster Club's gonna do a massive mailing of this in January with a return envelope and a pamphlet that you can ask. But yeah, there are naming rights. Thermotronics made the large donation, so they will have naming rights for the field complex. Then you can see the other ones. And if you're wondering, like, the second one, the diamond levels, naming rights to the concession stand, they have naming rights for athletic enhancements in that range. Enhancements in the range, athletic enhancements would be the shot put area, discus area, long jump, pole vault, scoreboard, press box, bleachers, whatever, so that's.
Growing list of.
And we have a committee that's gonna go out and ask other folks if they wanna donate towards it, but we're very thankful that there's Thermotronics coming through again, and Brooke Tank should get quite a bit of credit for doing the presentation that she did over at Thermotronics. I mean, we went there and she did a great job, and they're great partners, and we're very thankful. And that will be going out as a mass mailing in January.
Who developed the script for the brochure?
Dennis, there was a lot of coaches and a lot of Booster Club
Brooke is a lot of
members.
group of, a lot of coaches and.
Dennis
Palace,
Spiller's been
Lisa,
working
various
on
people.
this.
The athletic committee, so.
Yeah,
we
it's
talked
very-
about
Tasha Ross.
Tasha Ross, the
Rob
Booster Club,
Rankin.
the Booster Club is heavily involved. Tasha
Chris
Ross is
Horvat's
awesome.
been there.
So it's been it's a building, they will come, so Brooke or whoever started this and the group, they have worked hard to do this. It's been a lot of.
We'd read a paragraph and then we'd argue about the words we used. I mean, it was not always fun.
I think it's very, very well done.
Very good.
Presents a whole.
The coaches really, I was impressed with the coaches. They came prepared, they knew what they wanted to do, and they're consistent. I mean, that's just fun to be part of, they're.
And we asked if people are making donations, they make it towards the Pioneer Athletic Booster Club And they even have a code you can scan with your phone and, yeah, so that's the direction it should go, and then they'll donate that towards the school, and they, you know, they're gonna collect all the small donations. Of course, we'll take a check at the school too, but we prefer if it goes to the Booster Club, and the Booster Club will send it our way when they have it, so very exciting. On the same tone then, the pricing we had for the building structure was based on numbers that for the construction of the summer at 22. But Myron gave us those numbers in April of 21. And so with the rise in all the costs, they are reevaluating those numbers, and they'll get back to us soon. I mean, it's only been since CTX made said, here's the donation, then I kind of fast-tracked it with Bray and Myron and said, okay, because we're adding one bathroom stall in the men's room and one more sink in the men's side as well, because the electronics would like one more in there. And so Bray is redoing the design a little bit, and then we asked Myron, can you double check those numbers, because we know estimating April of 21 for summer of 22 is a difficult task enough, along with the spike and everything that's gone up lately, so they're rerunning those numbers. So that's exciting, it's good stuff, and it's nice that we got a supportive community that's coming forward, so. They will be, yes. Yeah.
Anything to add to the legislative report, Sue?
Just want to mention that we have had some policy committee meetings, as you might guess from the agenda, and a lot of those are legal and legislative kinds of updates, and Kyle had a list of the technical ones, but we have a whole lot here, and get prepared for a whole lot more, because they're coming fast and furious from Neola. And just a reminder that the governor did give schools $110 million, $133,000 for us, and that the ESSER funds, or at least 95% of them, have been released by the feds. So there is funding there to help us with those learning gaps and those mental health kinds of issues that we were seeing. And there is still time to register for the WASB convention. The early bird is over with. That was over on December 15, but there is still an opportunity to register for that in-person conference this year. We're all holding our breath that it will be in person, depending on where this crazy COVID thing goes, but so now it is in person.
Okay, thank you.
Just a question for my edification. When the Wisconsin Association of School Boards comes up with a resolution, as an example, which caught my eye, the curriculum and professional training on Asian, American, and Pacific Islanders. So they want to put in the curriculum some education curriculum with regards to Asian, American, and Pacific Islanders. Did they ever go back to the schools to see if we're in favor of that?
This was put forth by a member of WASB.
Okay.
And it will be debated at the conference in January. And every district will have a delegate there. Every CISA will have a delegate. And those people will vote as to whether or not this should be a part of the legislative agenda of WASB. It would have to go through the legislature, through DPI, but it was presented by a member school district. That's where it came from. It didn't come from WASB, it came from a member school district.
I was just going to say, if you're going to add to the curriculum, maybe they should be forced to also provide what you're going to take away from the curriculum.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what the membership will determine. All 400 and some districts that are represented will determine that.
It's a long process.
Yes.
Under school board goals, we moved our presentation by the legal group forward. We'll begin the superintendent evaluation process tonight in closed session. We're just chipping away at those goals. Next, anybody have anything they want to discuss on that? Hearing none, we'll move on to the 21-22 school operations under COVID.
You have a copy of some numbers for COVID, which the nurse put together this afternoon. It shows November to December. November, we had 19 students, 15 in the elementary, 3 middle school, 1 high school, all recovered. We had 6 staff members, and she thinks 9 were spread through the classrooms. There's no way of determining that or not, that's just what she thinks, based on the kids and the relationship she thinks they have. In December, we've had 18 students, 15 in the elementary, 3 middle schools, 0 in the high school. 6 of those 18 are now recovered cases. We have 4 staff, 3 are regular staff, 1's a substitute teacher, and then she believes there's been 1 case where it's been 4K classroom spread. And then she puts a note there, others are linked to parent and family members. So when we came back from Thanksgiving, I went to masking 4K through 6. That's where our cases are. If you look at the 18 students and 15 are elementary, the staff are all elementary related as well. We had 1 high school staff member, her child is in elementary school. So that's where it's been. You can have the argument back and forth that masking has stopped it from being worse. You could say that, well, look, the high schoolers aren't masking and they have no cases, so your masking at the elementary is not working. I felt like we had to at least get to Christmas break with masking. Last December, we ended up being home for 2 weeks. We were short on subs, and we were pretty close there this year, but we'll make it, so.
The other thing is, we don't know what percentage of our high schoolers are vaccinated, but certainly that percentage of vaccination must be higher than it is in the elementary grades.
The elementary only recently has had the opportunity
Right.
to become vaccinated, right? And I don't know, I really, yeah, we don't know who's vaccinated.
I would think there'd be a lot closer interaction between the kids maybe at the younger level too.
I think little
Versus
kids
high
touch
school, I mean,
Mr.
I guess-
Wilson, little kids touch each other more than high schoolers?
I guess that's why I wasn't sure. But I mean, they space out maybe more, there's less kids in a class, maybe like in high school level, or maybe.
Yeah, they gather around the table tighter, they play.
Smaller
Yeah.
tables, smaller chairs.
Probably.
They share more.
They probably don't
They don't,
touch their mouths as often or something.
yeah, that's a lot, but, yeah.
Does the health department ever talk about bringing their vaccination teams into the schools? So when I was a kid, in the ancient days, the health department came in and set up a station.
There was an offer earlier, like in the spring, to do so. Yeah, and I kind of declined it because you just go down 5 miles down the road and get it anytime you want.
Several school districts are doing that.
But sometimes you gotta bring them out into Mohammed, because Mohammed.
The problem is they need parents.
You need
Right, you
parent
need, oh,
permission.
yeah, you need,
Yeah, you can't
so you
just-
gotta get a form signed.
Yeah, you can't just vaccinate them without the parents, so you might as well have the parent involved and go down 5 miles down the road. Plus, some folks don't want that in the school. So it was just better to leave it where it's at, because you got access, it's 5 miles.
I don't think there's been a problem with access.
I mean, you can go to
Problem with
login.
access, it was very easily available.
And it is different if it's here and you send the forms home, there's no thought to it, it's just you take the forms, go.
Well, there is a thought, Jerry, the thought is in the schools promoting vaccinations.
Oh, I mean, that's
It's
a,
not that simple anymore.
that's a political issue. Schools support vaccination.
If you're offering it inside your walls, some parents will tell you that you're now promoting it.
As long as we're on
At least
that,
my email inbox will tell me that.
as long as we're on that subject, who's assigned to keep track of incoming students? I'm talking about 4K, 5K, and maintain their state required vaccinations.
Our nurse does that.
Okay. So that's her sole, she's in charge of that.
Well, yeah, that's hers.
Because, it's going on. And last thing we want is measles break out or something like that in the school. So, just mention.
Yeah. And right now, I couldn't tell you, like, you had your COVID 1 or 2 shots, and now there's been, what, 2 boosters, and I could not tell you who's had 1 booster, 2 boosters, no booster, I mean, that's,
Yeah, but I mean, it's
Who's up
the
there?
state required ones, measles, mumps, diphtheria, all that.
but you can still pass on for religious reasons if you want to.
Yeah,
Mhm.
okay.
Because you have your religious freedoms on that.
Any other discussion on COVID operations? Hearing none, we'll move to the WASB resolutions, and as Sue was explaining, those come forward by a member of school district. And I think she is our delegate at the convention, so if somebody feels strongly about one of those resolutions, whether it is a real benefit to Sevastopol or not a benefit to Sevastopol, you should speak now as to a direction how we want her to vote. And if we don't have any objections to any of them, then I would take a motion that she vote whatever is in the best interest of Sevastopol.
You will notice that there are very few this year. I don't know why, except to say that people were probably occupied with a lot of other things and didn't really have time to focus on this. But what these resolutions do is inform our legislative staff at WASB. There are currently 2 people in those positions, and they work with both state and federal legislators in the direction that is provided for them by these resolutions, as well as resolutions that have been passed in the past years and are still relevant. So I think most of these are pretty straightforward and supportive of children, certainly the safe harbor and the increase in per pupil spending resources, funding for children with disabilities, Melissa, advanced learning, in other words, gifted and talented, although they used advanced learning to make it a little broader than gifted and talented in their terminology, categorical aid for mental health services, broadening the scope of mental health services to include not only social workers and counselors and psychologists, but community mental health professionals as well. And then the curriculum and professional training in the area of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. We had Native American pass a few years ago. And then the others deal with the situation that has occurred with the National School Board Association and some of the conflict there. Just giving the Board of Directors of WASB the option of partnering with other national educational organizations than the National School Board Association, because some of the political drama that has emerged, and I've referred to that in some of my reports in the past. So if anyone has any questions, I would be happy to answer those or try to answer them. If not, I will vote in our best interest. And I think we need
a motion on that.
Yes, and we also need an alternate at the convention.
Didn't we vote on an alternate?
Well, Cindy was the alternate, am I not correct?
I was.
Yes, and you are not attending.
Is anyone else attending?
I was planning on attending, but I haven't cleared my calendar yet for that thing. I know I gotta decide.
What is the day of that vote?
It is the Wednesday, would be January, I want to say the 20th. Kyle, do you have your calendar handy there?
That's the 19th.
19th, okay. I plan to be there,
That
but
sounds perfect.
Do you know what time that vote is?
1:30.
What time?
1:30?
I have to be in Milwaukee that day anyway, so if you want to vote me as the alternate, I'll be the alternate.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I'm not no, I would only go for that.
Oh, I just wondered.
I'm not attending the convention, but if Sue couldn't do that, I would go for that. I guess we need a motion first to make me the alternate.
You would do, that's what you first. I would make a motion to make Yuri alternate at the WASB convention.
Second?
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Then we'll take a motion, if there aren't any questions or comments on the resolutions, that the delegates vote in the best interest of Sevastopol.
Move to have our delegate to the WASB resolution meeting vote in the best interest of the Sevastopol School District.
Questions or, is there a second?
I'll second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And just to let you know too, that while these are the resolutions now, that group goes through a rather extensive process of amendments. So they may be amended in various ways, or they may be voted down entirely.
We're at the time of year when we do the school board of self-evaluation, and for that, we have been using school perceptions, that school perceptions platform. Do you want to continue to use that platform?
That's through the WASB, correct?
Yes, the school perceptions, yes,
School Perceptions is the company, but it's through this,
Right.
yes.
yes.
So we have a contract with them?
It's free.
It's part of your membership.
That's part of the membership.
Yeah.
And so, I guess we'll contact and
Sure.
get that moving. And the link, we'll get the link, I don't know what it, at the time.
I think Steve and I can work on that tomorrow morning.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, perfect,
We
okay.
gotta look it up, is what we have to do. Steven doesn't know it.
Okay.
I just threw it at him now.
Okay.
TJ come to the meetings.
We have the high school course description booklet for 22-23 in front of us. Any points you want to make, Mr. Baer? Any questions from school board members?
No, it includes the new courses that we brought to you in November. We're also alternating year courses for some of our elective classes so that we can ensure high enrollment numbers. And so that was a recommendation, and we are doing that in all of our elective grades. So highlighted which years they'll be offered. Helps us focus on enrollment.
I would move to approve the high school course description booklet for 2022, 2023 as presented. Second?
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Then can we have a motion to accept the retirement of Jean Kugel?
I would move to approve the retirement of Jean Kugel, administrative assistant, who has given, I believe it's 17 years to
17 and a half.
the Sevastopol School District.
Second?
Second by Keith. Any questions, comments, discussion?
It's been posted.
It has been posted. It closes on,
Tomorrow,
I thought it's Monday.
on Monday, right, it's
I
Monday.
can't remember, but yeah.
We're losing so many of our support staff. This is the third one now.
Third secretary since
Yeah.
July, yep.
Any other questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Then the resignation of Lexi Ross, who is the girls' assistant soccer coach. Motion to accept her resignation.
Move to approve the resignation of Lexi Ross, girls' assistant soccer coach.
Second?
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion is carried. Then, under item E, that long list of kind of miscellaneous changes to policies, which caused me to have to go get a new pair of glasses. Someone have a motion to approve those policy revisions.
I would move to approve the policies as listed.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say
There is a couple of things that I'm looking for now, but I think one that popped out to me was the hiring of faculty or staff that are spouses or children of board members. Here it is, someplace.
Yeah, we did not,
That was never, I know it's a new addition.
yeah, it was not something we selected though.
We didn't take any of the options.
Right. Most small districts aren't because they don't have a lot of choice.
Right.
And that was confirmed by our Neola representative, Jean, that in smaller districts, you can't really do that.
Okay.
Any others?
But thanks for bringing that up.
I just noticed how we have a lot of these we approved them just 10 months ago, and now they're already, this company's already sending us changes again.
Right.
Right,
I think
that's how
that's
the
really,
old works.
I think that's where it creates a lot of unnecessary work.
Depends on what drives them.
Well, it gets our policy committee to meet and review them.
Yeah.
Huh? No, I'm not saying that, but it just kind of,
I think
if your businesses can make money off of making policies, you just make more policies because you're going to make more money.
what would be helpful, Jerry, you know, you're on that policy committee. If you would join us and you could share some of those thoughts with Jean.
I don't think anybody knows I'm on it because I haven't gotten enough to come to me.
You're officially.
Oh, wasn't Jerry invited?
Yeah, you should,
Unless they met in November,
We met twice now.
yeah, you should be getting them.
We just met.
and then that's my fault.
Well, the tie-up, how do we pay,
Annual fee.
we have an annual fee from them?
But not by policy.
Well, that's what I was saying, that's what I asked.
Right, not by policy.
I was being superfluous on that, but I just find it just fascinating. The number of policies, you have a policy on don't use smoking on the school, then you get another one on don't use smoking by students, you get another one, don't use smoking by faculty, and you get another one, don't use smoking by the public. Why don't you just have one policy that says smoking is prohibited?
Because the Neola system keeps your support staff, your certified staff, your student, and your citizens all in separate categories.
So I'm just saying, maybe I'm just saying, they've created a very complicated, not lean system of doing policies. And I don't know if education
Well, is that a
is,
history of it? Why do we?
and I don't know if education is bent on doing it lean.
Packaged the way they're packaged.
It's the way they do it is so you don't miss something. So they have it neat and boom, 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 and I'm sure when they
Of course,
do
you can't
one,
find
they do
it,
all
though.
four at the same time. Well, you go up on the search bar and you look for it. Now, if we did our policies on our own, we would have a binder and then you wouldn't have the searchability and they have legal teams checking out. We'd be sending it to our lawyer. We would miss something. WASB would send out a update and say, hey, these are the 4 policies you should be looking at, your topics, and we would miss them by the time.
And it's probably a personal thing to me, it just sends me up the wall, it is not lean.
I think it would be helpful for you to meet with us, with Jean, the representative. I think
Gene
that
Warren,
would be
so
very
she's
helpful.
talking about it.
The only thing I'll tell you, I was involved in a very extensive effort with the military, because historically, we had all these standards and instructions that it was quite frankly ridiculous, right? And like, you know, there's a document like this that tells you how to buy an ashtray, right? So, and it's documented and taxpayers paid to maintain it every year. And so the whole military went through a very painful, detailed, to throw all things like that. You know, if it's a standard on a new fighter jet, yeah, we kept that, you know. And that's kind of the related question here is this just a self-licking ice cream cone that the education ball game has evolved for 40 or 100 years, I don't know, a long time. And that, but that's, I don't know, Neola's not the one to fix that, it would be the DPI guy.
But if we
Well, it isn't
didn't have
just
Neola,
Neola. WASB has a policy service. If you don't like Neola, we can go with WASB's policy service, but it's going to be the same thing.
I think part of the thing is, a lot of these policies are probably driven by the fear, I mean, we have to have them, I mean, it's a lot, if you read some of these, it's probably just, you have to have it to cover your.
Yeah, I mean, just a bit, I mean, so they sent a whole brand new policy, I have to go through all, I'm just thinking all these school districts, because they don't say school board anymore, they change it to Board of Education.
Right.
Yeah.
The Bible thing, the
It's-
support.
Some of that stuff
And it has
is just,
nothing to do with
that
the
does
policy.
drive you crazy.
I would say say probably 90%, so it's been 6 years, right? 90% of these things that I read, and probably higher, are
Are stupid.
our words.
Like a word change, like
Doesn't
eat a
change the
sheet or
meaning,
something.
doesn't change anything. That's the only reason I would support the questioning. You're right, we need to have policies, that, I agree with policies, but do we have to update them all the time when it was a school board and now it's a school people? I mean, okay.
Or the school person now.
Yeah, but that's okay. So, I don't know.
It's better to keep the system updated than to say, oh, don't correct those that are, it's better to.
Jerry, you should go to that meeting, work it on the sub.
Make sure you get it.
We got
All right,
other things.
Jerry,
We'll have a better understanding.
There's no doubt next time.
Appreciate it, Jerry.
I have to make a trip to the local.
Your points are well, your points are well taken.
It's a bigger animal.
But I remember
You get into
when,
the policy committee, I'm gonna raise a question, is why do we bring these policies to a board of directors? These are operating policies, these are day-to-day operations, the board should have nothing to do with this.
Well, so, because we're a public entity and you're in charge
It's
of.
required
That's
by
right, but
law.
that, I don't,
That's
that's
our job, we
The
said.
board is legally.
I will question that, that's something you
The
probably.
board is legally responsible.
Right, and so
for-
is the NWTC board, and they don't bring us how to empty the ashtrays in the counties, okay?
Well, that was resource related.
Okay, how about the policy? We need a motion here.
Yeah, we have a loaded
I think
motion
we,
and second, you gotta vote
motion
on
and
it.
a second, so, if there's no other discussion on item E, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. I'll take a motion on the item F, the two policies under item F.
I'd make a motion to approve first reading of new policies 5500.01 and 6152.01.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion is carried. And then under item G,
I move to approve the first reading of revised policy 0144.3, conflict of interest.
Second.
questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that motion is carried. That concludes our regular business. I'll look for a motion to convene to executive session.
Move to convene to executive session.
Second.
Roll call vote. Dave?
Aye.
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 Motion carried at 8:32 p.m. Back in open session at 9:59. We'll look for a motion on the accompanist.
I'll make a motion to approve Ann Ellen Betcher as the solo ensemble lessons piano accompanist.
I'll second that.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. I did not bring my calendar with us, but our meeting date for next month has changed.
January 13th.
It's January 13th.
Okay.
Again, try to have your, I'm going to send you a reminder, have your board or superintendent evaluation done by the 10th.
Now, just to clarify, you want us to do all the sections?
No, you can do all the sections if you want to, but the most important is to do those 3 sections that Mr. Lutke set out to us
1,
tonight.
6, and 11.
Okay.
If you want to go through all of them,
No, I'm trying to-
go, Dan.
Yeah, go.
I'm going through all of them because I want to see what they all are. But you don't, everybody doesn't have to do that.
Go ahead.
Do you need, there's
There's
a staff luncheon next week?
Staff luncheon on, well, Tuesday is going to be Thanksgiving dinner provided by the kitchen in here, and then on Wednesday potluck.
So last year you had us come and help serve. Do you need that this year? You don't need
No,
that?
no, we do not need
You do
that.
not need that this year.
Tuesday at what time? 11:30? Oh, I'm sorry, I'll look it up.
Put it in your report tomorrow.
I don't know what
That's been
time
a
lunch
year,
is
huh?
for everybody.
Lisa, that was a year, it's been a year since we served in the cafeteria.
Yeah? Okay, and then I put on the agenda for the next meeting to discuss the Studer book study. We're going to have board procedures, hopefully with the legal team. And I don't know if we want to discuss at some point assigning some of that fund balance that she talked about tonight.
I would do that more in May and June when we
Okay.
see how the year's turning out.
Okay,
Get on the low
Okay,
point.
would it-
Yeah, I mean, there's no rush on it.
okay.
This
So,
year's fine.
Is
Do
there
it
a
in
motion,
line with the budget.
is there a
For
motion
your
to
agenda
adjourn?
For the agenda next month, would it, based upon what we just spent an hour talking about, would it be helpful for us to have your staff on a board or someplace outline for us what takes place when a student comes to them and says, I don't feel safe because Johnny's acting weird?
I guess just the protocol that exists.
Yeah, that'd be interesting for us to see.
Just so all staff,
Yeah, what's the
We have to
process? What's
say-
the process?
Okay.
is there a motion to adjourn?
I'd make a motion. No, Sue, I'll second Sue's.
Motion to adjourn,
Aye.
and a second?
Aye.
And we, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried at 10:01 PM.